Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tea with Louise. And today I have the great pleasure of having my friend from Living the One Life, Martha. And oh God, I'm having one of those days, Martha. What's your last name?
Martha Alter Hines.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hines. I know that, but oh my God. That's me on my podcast, especially when we've just had all this news coming through of all the Supreme Court stuff. I'm kind of a bit all over the place. But Martha's with me today because I was recently a part of this amazing symposium that Martha created, and I'd like to talk about it with her, about how it came to be, how it grew, because it grew really huge, what kind of first prompted her doing it, how the focus came about, because it's the most unusual symposium I've ever been a part of. And I think I was the first to say yes, was I?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, and I admit, I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those, where I'm sure many people have taken part in these things, and you sign up for it, and you only have 24 hours to watch the recordings unless you buy the package and upgrade, and it's all very salesy and so on. But Martha didn't do that, and that's why I am so loving it. And it's still relevant that we're talking about it today, because Martha's made the recordings available in perpetuity. So anybody that signs up now will be able to watch all the recordings at their leisure. So Martha, what made you think of it, and how did you vision it when you first thought about it? Because I know it grew.
It did. Yeah. Well, and the story of how it came about is maybe a little unusual. I don't know. Essentially, my birthday is March 5th. So on March 5th, this year, 2022, astrologically, just for anybody who knows astrology, this is what my solar chart showed, which was Jupiter was conjunct the sun on my sun, and the north node, the transiting north node, was to the exact minute conjunct my Jupiter in my ninth house, precisely on at my solar return, right? So it's like this Jupiter north node sun thing going on. So I kind of knew something either really amazing or really not good. I don't know. Something was going to happen, but
something big, because it's Jupiter.
Yeah. Something really big. Probably regarding ninth house. Well, and then my sun is in Pisces, so traditionally ruled by Jupiter, and it's in my seventh house. Anyway, so I knew it was going to be like a ninth house, seventh house, something big. What ended up happening was I do some body. I see some bodywork clients. I was a massage therapist a really long time ago, and I still have some kind of loyal bodywork clients. So I have these clients who I've been seeing for 18 years, and they live on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And I was working on this client, and I had like a lightning bolt come through my body that it was like immediate download kind of experience. And I saw this vision in front of my face of this symposium that I was supposed to do. I've never done one. I'd only even been on one, which actually happened to start on my birthday. It was with Jamie Goldstein, who was doing Bridging Earth and Sky symposium. And I don't typically like symposiums or summits for the same reason you were talking about. I don't feel comfortable with it. Doesn't feel an integrity to me to do the salesy version of it. Mm-hmm. But Jamie is a really beautiful, humble human, and the way she was handling her summit felt so much in integrity to me. So something in me, I think, had shifted already, where I realized, oh wow, there's a different way that this could be done that could be actually healing for the planet.
Yeah.
So as opposed to just trying to make money or get your email list bigger or whatever. which is not, those aren't bad goals, but I don't like that to be the forefront in what I do or how I operate. So Jamie kind of, I think, set the stage for me, gave me a model that this is possible. And then I think that allowed this vision to come, like I was open to this vision coming through. And what the vision basically showed me was an outline of what the symposium was supposed to be, which was to address the healing of our relationships to gender and sexuality. And I got the message, do it. So on March 5th, I suddenly was supposed to do this thing that I hadn't ever thought about before. And I could say more, but that's the basic way it came through.
And it was kind of funny for me to witness, because I've been really busy since early March, but we recorded our interview and then it just kept growing and growing, and all these amazing people just kept saying yes. And I know Martha was messaging me because, you know, we are very much in alignment with how we like to work. So, you know, she was like, so-and-so said yes. It was just like, it was so meant to be. And so did you have a vision of initially of how many people you would have on it?
Yeah, well, and I think I might have said this to you at some point. I was getting told, again, by the spirit world, you know, I channel books, I channel message. So a lot of my life is, well, all of my life at this point is pretty directed by the spirit world. So I was getting told it's going to need to be around 40 speakers. And I thought, oh, wow, that is insane. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm going to aim for 20 or 25. That's good enough. That's normal. And it ended up being 42 speakers.
Which followers of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. 42. Sorry, the spirit world speaks to me in numbers and symbols as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, one of my favorite numbers, 42, ended up being
hilarious. Yeah. And honestly, I feel like on a human level, on a practical level, 42 speakers is probably a little too much. I mean, in a certain sense, it's too much for people to digest. It's, you know, it ended up being a lot of people. The symposium went for 8 days. And so that meant that if you average that out, that's a lot of speakers to try to cram into one day. But that's part of why it's very clear to me that this needs to be available for free forever.
And I think every speaker has been fine with that, right?
So far, nobody has told me to take their talk down. So yeah, I mean, if somebody does ask me to take it down, I will. I don't think it's a win-win-win-win. Yeah, it
is. I mean, we're always out here talking about our stuff, and so why wouldn't we want people to see it? So yeah, so tell us a little bit about the speakers you attracted and the themes. And I know we had some panels as well. And
yeah, so I could start with just the overall intention behind it, and then I could say who showed up to be speakers, if that's okay. So the intention behind it is rooted actually in the fact that I'm channeling a series of 8 books. And the first 3 I published 3-4 years ago, and they're called Living the One Light, Gaia Speaks, and The Cosmos Speaks. And those 3 are kind of like a little trio that are reminders of ourselves as beings of the cosmos, of the divine, of this planet Earth, and we're co-creators with everything, right? So then the second set of 3 is what I've been sitting with for the past 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. And those are called Love Speaks, The Goddesses Speak, and The Gods Speak. And those 3 are meant to be reminders of ourselves as the infinite manifestations of life and the infinite manifestations of the quote unquote, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And then also Love Speaks brings the 2 together and guides us through essentially healing inside of ourselves between these archetypes and these energies, and the sacred union, again, quote unquote. So so I channeled the first draft of Love Speaks in January, February, March 2020, and the first draft of The Goddesses Speak in the summer of 2020. And I've just been sitting with these three because I could feel it. Like there's some things that haven't shifted in me and haven't shifted in our world quite yet for it to all be ready to come through. And I haven't started Godspeak because I think, again, on a personal level, when I think about the divine masculine or the masculine in general, I have a lot of my own stuff to process. Like, what does that mean? Where are the positive models for that? When I think about the archetypes of the masculine, like take any of the gods in astrology, I don't really want to look up to somebody who's going to rape women and send down lightning bolts and kill people. That doesn't feel very empowering for me. So I've just been sitting, like I needed to do my own work with all of that. So the intention behind this whole symposium is really parallel to those books, The Love Speaks, Goddesses Speak, and God Speak. And I think it's trying to give a forum for us all to explore what is this? Like what when we say divine feminine, what do we mean? When we say divine masculine, what do we mean? And then what about all of us who maybe aren't cisgender or maybe aren't heterosexual? How do we feel about this? I mean, I identify as cisgender, mostly woman, with a little bit of non-binary, and pansexual, right? So like last summer, I had a very, very beautiful and deep relationship with a transgender woman. So I'm not straight. And yet, I mean, now I'm involved with a man, cisgender heterosexual man, but I'm not straight. So I get really upset at the thought of having very heterocentric or cisgender centric models. And the whole sacred marriage idea, or even the binary of the feminine masculine, doesn't tend, when we have those conversations, we don't tend to hold space for something other than
for all you know, right. And you know, myself personally, you know, I've been married to a man who is who's cisgender and identifies as such, but prior to him, just because I've been married 25 years doesn't mean I didn't have other experiences. So, you know, it's also kind of this assumption that, you know, once you've decided, that's it, you're it kind of thing.
No.
I've had,
and as I say over and over and over again in the symposium talks, my 15-year-old identifies as gender fluid and pansexual and goes by any pronouns. So I tend to use he for him, although he probably might, I don't know. I kind of check in with him, like, do you prefer he or they right now? Because he kind of goes back and forth.
I've been with my kids, you know, both my kids would not identify as pure straight. But it's shifted.
I think that's my opinion. I think that these identities do shift and move, and we need room to grow and change all the time.
Exactly.
So anyway, so that's the basic intention behind the symposium, is to hold space for us to explore our relationship to gender, our relationship to sexuality on all kinds of levels, but also to do it in a way that hopefully gives room and space for non-heterocentric and non-cisgender centric ways of being in the world, because I don't see that happening much of anywhere else.
No, I don't see it either. So I had a question there for a second, and you were mentioning, and if you're open to talking about it, you said you would. You had a little on the fine fit ending of the symposium. We had panels, and you do have one regret that's going to be addressed in the next symposium, I think, or perhaps in some follow-up interviews maybe as well. So,
yeah. I was saying before we started recording, the one thing I'm honestly really upset about, I'm upset at, not, I don't know if I'm upset at myself. Anyway, I'm trying to be gentle with myself because this was a huge endeavor and just, anyway, but the one thing I do regret is we had 4 panel discussions on the last day. Also all recorded, people can watch any of them. The one thing I didn't do that I really wish I had done was have a panel devoted to either non-binary realities or gender fluidity, or somebody asked a question during the divine masculine panel, why don't we talk about divine people? Like, why are we focused on the divine feminine and the divine masculine, but then why don't we just say divine people? So I feel honestly really sad that I didn't have a panel specifically about non-binary stuff, but we will.
But
And
I think we learn, it's the old, when you know better, you do better, or or it's something because there was so much going on and so many moving parts that you just didn't think of, and you think, oh, I should have thought of that,
Well, then I thought of it, honestly, I did think of it, but there's only, it's like, I was already thinking like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be sitting from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. nonstop doing the, like, hosting these panels. I'm going to be so exhausted by the end of it. And anyway, but several of the talks, like one entire day of the symposium, day 3, is devoted entirely to the wholeness of gender. And that day actually has a huge number of speakers on it, including 2 speakers who identify as non-binary and who are specifically talking about non-binary realities in their talks. Those are amazing. Joe G, who you're going to be interviewing later, who was amazing. Such a great human. Yeah. And then also Jonathan Coe, also totally amazing. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that. And then there were 2 speakers also on that day who identify as transgender. And I was really, really happy to be able to include their perspectives and their voices. And then some cisgender people on that day speaking about, like Verena Burrell spoke about the soul has no gender. And anyway, so it did get explored, just not in the panels so much.
That would be a huge undertaking. 42 speakers. I don't know how you managed to do it all and put it all together. And it's just well done. And it's clearly something that I'm quite passionate about myself.
Your book.
Yes. Because, and I actually would like to talk more about the book next time in the next panel. Because I'm developing these thoughts. So this book was written from a non-binary perspective. My editor, who commissioned me to write the book, she was actually a lesbian who runs a great online magazine called Lesbians Are Miracles, which
that's awesome.
I think it's such a cool name. And I was kind of like, why are you picking me to write? I'm old and I'm white, and I've been living as a straight woman, but clearly I've got more to me than that. And anyway, so I have a big theory that language shapes our reality. So I think a lot of the speakers spoke to that. I haven't had a chance to listen to them. And speaking as an astrologer, I know not all the speakers were astrologers. Were
probably about 40 to 50% were astrologers.
But speaking just from the purely astrological perspective, the planets are rocks or gas or whatever, And the chart, you hold a chart up, you don't see a gender in that, You cannot, it could be a chart for an event or a dog or anything. So, I think we ourselves, as humans, and particularly as astrologers, from my perspective, have really shaped our perspective. And it's always been a bit of a bugbear of mine, because when I've had astrologers look at my chart, they always go, "Oh, your chart's really masculine." And I'm
Mm,
like, what does that mean?
mm,
Just because I've got a lot of fire and things, does that mean what do you mean by that, really masculine? So it's
right,
always been something I've questioned. So it's a much, much needed conversation. And with regard to your uh, like slight regret with the panels at the end, I think I'd encourage listeners to understand that this is a growing conversation that people in our world are having, and our the openness and the perspectives are changing and growing all the time. Who could imagine a few years ago that calling people they and them would just start to become commonplace, you know.
right.
it's, and language changes over time. So I think please, if you haven't already been a part of this symposium, or signed up for it or registered for it, or even if you're registered and haven't listened to all the talks yet, I would encourage you to keep going back and visiting one when you have a spare hour here or there, because it really is a much needed conversation in the world of astrology. And what were the other speakers really? I've tended to focus on the astrological ones.
Have you watched the one with Nia Filer?
Oh, I haven't watched Nia yet. No,
Definitely.
although I adore Nia, and that's on my list to watch. So.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely, for anybody who wants to learn about transgender
Mm,
perspectives, but also just gender, reconsider our conceptions around gender,
mhm.
and also for any astrologer, any
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
three categories, I highly recommend her talk, because she is an astrologer. She's a transgender woman,
Mhm,
and her talk is kind of has two parts. The first part is general education around gender, and what the different terms mean, what
mhm.
the process of, or the experience of being transgender can include, sometimes does include, sometimes doesn't include, sort of that basic education. But then the second half, she talks specifically to astrologers, and she gives examples of charts of people who identify as transgender and I think non-binary. I can't remember all the details, but it was fascinating. It was kind of like it felt to me like a beginning of the research that people are doing. Like I know Eric Roth also talked briefly in his talk about some research he's done, looking at charts of clients who are transgender, just to try to identify some themes that maybe for astrologers could help us
Mhm.
reconsider how we look at gender in a chart. Anyway, definitely recommend that one for you.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be listening to that one.
Yeah.
And I might try and get Nia to come on my
Exactly.
podcast.
I bet she would
Oh.
love to. Yeah, I bet she would love it.
Yeah, I absolutely adore her, and I would send her a copy of my book first, so she could read that, so she
Yeah,
can see where we're coming from.
yeah.
Because I think astrology and a lot of the kind of, I guess, coachy world as well, and the spiritual world really has to start meeting people where they're at. I think that's the biggest crux of the whole matter, for my mind, and raising awareness. Because I think I've long now been asking in my intake form for astrology readings what pronouns people want
Yeah.
to do, because I can't tell from their name and their chart how they identify at all.
Mm, okay. Absolutely not.
No,
And it might change from today to tomorrow. You don't know.
it could absolutely change. So I think the biggest crux is raising awareness, understanding, and then encouraging people who work in our world to meet people where they're at, and without judgment, but at a greater level. I think we're at a time where we're integrating all these so-called polarities. I don't think there is such a thing as an absolute polarity.
Mm. Well, and kind of going along that line, one of the things that's touched me so deeply, I'd say two things in particular, when I'm hearing from people who are participants, I've
Mhm.
been getting a lot of emails, and like I sent out a survey, and so a lot of people filled out the survey. And so I've been hearing a lot of people's reactions to the talks, reactions to the symposium, and just their stories, like why they're even there to begin with. The two things I think that have touched me the most, I would say the number one thing is I heard from one mother of a transgender girl and one grandmother of a teenage girl who came out to her grandmother just during the symposium as pansexual. And the mother said to me, I cried hearing from you, because have been feeling so alone. I don't know like where I didn't think I had any community. I didn't think there were my people out there at all.
Oh, wow.
And so she and I have exchanged a few emails where like she made me cry, I made her cry. God.
I'm tearing up just at the thought.
I know, it's so, I mean, and at the end of the symposium, the very, very, very end at the end of the last panel discussion, I cried because I could barely talk at the end, because I was basically dedicating this whole thing to our kids, to all of the transgender, non-binary, queer identified kids, which is a ton of our kids, including my own child. And that hits me the hardest out of all of this. But so number one, I'm so grateful that this symposium seems to be giving some people at least a sense that there are people out here, out in the world, who they can relate to, who can support them. And what this mother said actually also was, not only was she grateful that there was a place where she could connect with other people who are supportive of her child, but also people who are spiritually oriented in addition to just politically or socially supportive. That was really huge for her. And then this grandmother who wrote to me said, I'm so grateful because this is what she said. I think actually I sent this testimonial to all the speakers, so maybe you already read this one, but she said, I kept hearing about the symposium and I didn't sign up because I didn't think it was for someone like me. I think she's probably in her 70s, probably cisgender, heterosexual, white, I'm guessing, person. And she said, but I kept getting emails from more and more and more people I respect who were going to be speakers on it. And so finally I did sign up. And then coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, my granddaughter came out to me as pansexual, or Pan, she called herself. And I had no idea what that meant. But I am so grateful to you, because now through listening to these talks, I'm learning what this means. And I feel like I am capable of supporting my granddaughter. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God.
I'm kind of laughing because I remember when my youngest told me she was pansexual. Like, great. I was like, but what does that mean?
What is that word? Yeah.
It didn't shock me at all, because she's very kind of non-binary in essence, but I just was like, I want to understand the terms that you're using, but how awesome is that's kind of helped generations understand each other better and support each other. So
and I'll just also say, I've heard from many women. This seems to be a big trend. Women in their 70s and 80s, 70s and 80s, who are saying to me, I need to learn, I need to change my perspective on this. And I am so grateful I have the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Wow.
I mean, like, that was not what I was expecting. I thought this would attract mostly people in their 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, maybe 60s, who are already kind of on that road, like already maybe identify as queer in some way. That's what I was thinking was going to happen. No, absolutely not. It's people who don't identify as queer, who want to change.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
That is just amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, So, well, I'm just so proud to have been a part of it, Martha, and just what an amazing kind of lightning bolt. And I get those lightning bolts. My Venus retrograde class came to me like that.
Oh,
Just
cool.
like I was just like it came in a kind of a dream. I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm doing a Venus retrograde class. Oh, okay. And that's grown, and this is going to grow, and I'd love to be a part of it going forward, because I do think it's so important, especially with kind of the resistance, shall we say, or clapback that a lot of us are getting at the moment, and a lot of the communities that this speaks to. I
Yeah.
think people need a place to kind of gather and connect with other people, as well as find out the information and the support. It's the voices just need to be heard, and I just think what an amazing thing you've put out in the world. Is there anything else you want to tell people about it
I guess the only other thing I would say is that the other thing that's been so interesting and amazing to me is the timing of this whole thing, because again, this came through on March 5th. So since March 5th, we're recording this now on, what is today, June 27th, 2022. In that time period, we have had I don't know what the technical term is, but like the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and now the attempt in Texas, and then now the Supreme Court ruling around Roe versus Wade, and
they're talking about going after gay
marriage. Exactly. So it's so deeply upsetting, and very easy for people to feel devastated and like there's no hope in the world, and like our world is on fire, which I kind of feel like it is. But then I notice like that, just in my case, for speaking for myself, I'm being asked to hold this space, and so many of us are being asked to come through. Not that the symposium obviously isn't the cure to the all these problems or anything, but it's just one little drop.
Yeah,
and I feel like there
as my book is, yeah,
your book, exactly, like all of these things are here also, so it can't be a coincidence, like it can't be.
And I can tell you astrologically that we're not going back,
Yeah.
as much as these forces might try.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
no kind of putting it back in the whatever, in the bottle or whatever,
And like someone pointed out to me the other day when we were talking about all this stuff, like my 15-year-old, he's about to be 15 and a half. Guess what? He's going to be able to vote in 2.5 years. And so will all of his friends.
Oh, yeah.
And this generation, I mean, my 15-year-old is amazing, but so are all of his friends.
Oh, and my kids are a little bit older. They're 24 and 22, just 22, but then they're the same. They are the most amazing young people.
Yeah.
And my two can vote, and I tell you, I know which way they vote.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. So
Yeah.
I mean, it just, we have a future coming that, this moment is not fun. And
I think us as the older generations, I'm probably one of the older speakers, but that's fine. I think we are there to help steward and encourage the younger generation, which is why I love that you had people like Joe on and things who are clearly much younger.
Yeah, there was a big range. Actually, the oldest one person speaker is 90.
Yeah.
Anne Baring. Yeah, she's 90s. You're definitely much younger than her.
I know, I kept going around going, I'm on a symposium with Anne Baring. Oh my God. I love that.
Oh, and I will just say, because I think this kind of sums up everything, my favorite moment in her talk is, again, she's 90-year-old, educated at Oxford, lives in England, right? I mean, she's the most proper, sweet, wonderful human ever. And in this talk, she looks straight at me, the camera, and says, I'm mad, because she has spent her whole life doing scholarly work on the divine feminine and the rise of the divine feminine and the history of the feminine, and saying, like, her latest book that she just published, I think at age 89, is called wow, I'm blanking on the name of it. Something about returning to the sacred in the cosmos, or the soul of, no, it's called The Soul of the Cosmos. And her whole point is what she talks about in the talk on the symposium, which is that we need to remember the sacred. Like, we've lost our connection to the sacred. We've lost our connection to the divine feminine. We've lost our connection to ourselves as more than just our left brain, you know, our rational minds. We're so much more than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on and on and on. But so she spent her whole life working on this, advocating for this. And here we are, bombing people, taking away people's rights, all these things. What are we doing? She's pissed, you know.
And not to mention the climate.
The climate, not to mention the way we treat our planet.
The earth, which is kind of divine feminine also. If you want to separate them into feminine and masculine, it's
exactly,
you know, it nurtures and creates us. Oh, I'm mad too. I'm mad.
I know. It's very, very upsetting. Right. And then the last thing I'll just say is, so most of my career actually was spent as a social worker, right? So I bring all of this passion for social justice and then environmental justice. And on the panel that you were on, the third panel with Heather Ensworth, and it's called Returning to Wholeness. Literally while we were recording that talk, I had the epiphany come through that's so obvious to me now, which is, when we're doing this advocacy work, when we're doing this this work in the world where we're being activists in some way, that's not separate at all from ourselves as sacred beings. It's all one thing. And I personally have lived a life where my social work side is over here, my woo-woo side is over here, and the two haven't really blended. And so this symposium for me is the spirit world, I think, saying to me, oh no, Martha, you are like a spiritual social worker. You know, that's really what this is about, is we have to change our world, and we have to do it in a way that brings all of who we are to.
Oh, I hear you. You know, I've been the same with my astrology work. You know, I write prolifically. I'm always, my daily posts are long, and not just the books and things. And I do videos. And I tried for so long to separate my activism, you know, because I didn't want to upset anybody.
Yeah.
No longer.
Oh dear.
You know, and every time I get a little bit, you know, or very more activisty kind of on my Facebook page, a few followers disappear, but I think, well, you're just not my people. So, but maybe you heard the message a little bit, you know, to that it might play on your brain as you take yourself off my page.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to bring all of us to it, I think, these days, not just, yeah, for sure. Big message there. So the symposium itself was called Re-Becoming the One 22, and it's at livingtheonelight.com. I will put the link in the show notes. I know that some of the speakers offered kind of some free downloads as well, to even add more to kind of the fact there's 42 speakers to listen to. As I said, you know, you don't have to listen to it all at once. Don't be overwhelmed. If you get the link, then do they need to even give their email, or is it just available kind of on your website now?
It right at this moment, you go to my website and you put in your email to get access to the whole thing in one place. But I have started putting most of the talks also just public on my YouTube channel, which is Living the One Light also. Yeah. So, I mean, if certain speakers don't want their video to be public, so there are a few that aren't, but most are as of yesterday, I think.
Oh, no, mine can be public, but you know, I think it's worth putting your email in anyway, even if you go to YouTube to watch most of them, because then you'll find out about the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm continuing to interview. I think I have 5 people already slated to be interviewed in addition to the people who have already been interviewed.
Yeah.
Some really amazing people. So yeah, I would recommend putting your email if you want to be updated. And yeah, definitely.
So Martha can be found everywhere at Living the One Life.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're on Facebook. Are you on any other?
Facebook.
Well,
YouTube.
YouTube. Too,
Yeah, I am technically on Instagram, but I don't understand Instagram.
Oh, I don't love Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just can't quite. I don't know. I'm 45. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. And Twitter, I'm also technically on there, but I also don't understand Twitter.
I'm
But
on Twitter, but I use that mostly for personal political raging. So. Or whatever. So I'm not on there for my work particularly. So I hear you on that one. Maybe we should both be on TikTok as well, but
oh God, I don't even think I can attempt that. Yeah, not yet. Maybe someday.
me neither, Martha. People keep sending me TikTok videos. So I'm like, stop making me watch TikTok.
Yeah, Facebook is about my limit, I feel like, but maybe someday I'll change that. I don't know.
Oh, so please go and check it out, and please keep following this conversation. Clearly, Martha and I are both very committed to changing or bringing more understanding and perhaps changing people's perspectives a little bit from what they hear. Not forcing the change on them, but encouraging change. And well, any last words?
I would just say I'm actually also committed not only to helping other people change, myself. I changed. I can't even, my life just did like a total 180 over the past 3 months in various ways. But in particular, I mean, just sitting with each of the speakers, it was like having these transformative experiences just in that hour and a half. After recording 2 or 3, I would just shut off. Like I would need a reset and I would need to sleep because they were so deeply transformative for me. I mean, every single one is just like your Cheroklo. Like everybody should watch your Cheroklo one. It's so beautiful. And I know about Chiron. I knew nothing about Cheroklo, and it's so profound what you shared in that talk. But yeah, so many of these, just that 1 hour, I would say like Joe G's talk that you've listened to literally changed my life, for example. And another one that I would say literally changed my life just in the 1 hour was the one with Jason Engeldo on the regenerative agency.
I did watch that one. It was kind of amazing. Yeah,
there are many that are amazing. Many. So
oh, and Anne Baring, don't miss her.
Oh, Anne Baring, yeah.
Oh, and she's not going to be with us forever, so I make the most listening to every word.
And then Heather Ensworth talk, I'm beyond amazing. And I mean, so many. So yeah, so my commitment is to continuously transform myself too. And so I would say, if anybody does watch, please be in contact with me with any feedback, because even if it's, critical feedback, I really want that actually. And I feel like I'm a work in progress.
Oh, well, me too.
Yeah. So,
and suggestions even for
yes.
other speakers to be a fit. I just suggested a couple before we registered, and I'm like, what didn't I think of them before?
Yes. No, definitely, absolutely, for sure. One of the I would say the 2 big areas that I would like more suggestions on. I love the ideas that you were giving me. And what I'm really also trying to expand in this coming year is speakers who are doing work around anti-racism work and environmental justice work. So racial justice, environmental justice, because they're so tied to misogyny. They're so tied to, if we do the healing around gender and sexuality, that directly impacts racism, anti-racism work, and directly impacts our relationship with this planet.
Totally. So it's all about feeling all of those polarities.
Yes. All of it. Yeah.
All of the othering of anything.
Yeah. exactly. That's something I would like to bring more voice to.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of that in some of the talks, but that's one area I just feel like I want to keep going.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you for being here. I always love talking to you.
Oh, we'll keep doing it.
Thanks for joining me for tea.
Yeah. That's-
Cheers.
Thank you.